Hey, class, welcome back. Today we are talking about World War II still, and we're talking about the causes of World War II. There were a lot of different causes of World War II. One of the main ones was Adolf Hitler, his rise, the rise of Hitler and the Nazi Party, Treaty of Versailles, the Great Depression. All right, lots of different things were causes of the Great Depression, and we'll go over a few of those today. Like I said, there were many events throughout the world that led to the beginning of World War II. World War II was a direct result of turmoil left behind by World War One with the Treaty of Versailles. Uh, it put lots of reparations on Germany, and it put their economy in the toilet. So there's lots of different main causes, and we're gonna go over some of them here.
Causes of World War II. There were many events throughout the world that led to the beginning of World War II. In many ways, World War II was a direct result of the turmoil left behind by World War I. Here are some of the main causes of World War II.
All right, like I said, the Treaty of Versailles was one of them. It ended World War I between Germany and the Allied powers. Germany lost the war. The treaty was very, very harsh against them. Okay? They were forced to accept responsibility for what happened. For starting World War One, the war damages suffered by the Allies, they were forced to start paying on those reparations. I mean, a huge, huge sum of money. All right, like I said, reparations, what it was called. The problem was treaty that left Germany economy in ruins, and people were starving. The government was in chaos. People were not happy about this at all.
The Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles ended World War I between Germany and the Allied powers. Because Germany had lost the war, the treaty was very harsh against Germany. Germany was forced to accept the responsibility of the war damages suffered by the Allies. The treaty required that Germany pay a huge sum of money called reparations. The problem with the treaty is that it left the German economy in the ruins. People were starving and the government was in chaos.
All right, then you had Japanese expansion. There was a period before World War II. Japan was growing rapidly, and it was just an island nation, but it was growing. They did not have the land or natural resources to sustain their growth, so they began to look to grow their empire, and they invaded China in 1937.
Japanese expansion. In the period before World War II, Japan was growing rapidly. However, as an island nation, they did not have the land or the natural resources to sustain their growth. Japan began to look to grow their empire in order to gain new resources. They invaded China in 1937.
All right, fascism had come about. All right, the economic turmoil that was caused by World War I. Some countries were taken over by dictators, and they formed these powerful fascist governments. All right, one of these would be Benito Mussolini over here. All right, these dictators wanted to expand their empires. They were looking for new lands to conquer, and so they went out and did that. First fascist government was Italy, which was ruled by dictator Mussolini. This is Mussolini here. And Italy invaded and took over Ethiopia in 1935. And Adolf Hitler would later emulate, because that was his idol, Benito Mussolini was, and take over Germany. Another fascist government was Spain, ruled by the dictator Franco. So all these different fascist governments had taken place, and all had these powerful dictators with them.
Fascism. With the economic turmoil left behind by World War I, some countries were taken over by dictators who formed powerful fascist governments. These dictators wanted to expand their empires and were looking for new lands to conquer. The first fascist government was Italy, which was ruled by the dictator Mussolini. Italy invaded and took over Ethiopia in 1935. Adolf Hitler would later emulate Mussolini in his takeover of Germany. Another fascist government was Spain, ruled by the dictator Franco.
All right, Hitler and the Nazi Party. In Germany, Adolf Hitler, he rose to power, all right, and he became part of the Nazi Party. Germans were desperate for someone to turn them around because, like I said, they were upset about the Treaty of Versailles. The economy was bad. There were people starving. And he looked at this and he said, hey, here's my opportunity. So he offered them hope. And in 1934, Hitler was proclaimed the Führer, or leader, and became the dictator of Germany. This was after he became the chancellor of Germany.
Hitler and the Nazi Party. In Germany, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party rose to power. The Germans were desperate for someone to turn around their economy and restore their national pride. Hitler offered them hope. In 1934, Hitler was proclaimed the Führer, or leader, and became Dictator of Germany.
All right, so Hitler resented these restrictions that were put on by the Treaty of Versailles. Okay, he hated it. He hated it. They had to pay these large reparations. He hated they had lost land. All right, and what he did, he began to rearm Germany. He allied Germany with Mussolini and Italy. He looked to restore Germany to power by expanding his empire. All right, and he first took over Austria in 1938. The League of Nations did nothing to stop him. Okay, they just looked at, okay, well, maybe if we just give him this, he'll stop, and nothing else will be done about it. So since they didn't do anything, later on in 1939, he took over Czechoslovakia. So and then in 1939, he invaded Poland. Poland had allies, and it's what began World War II. But they were expanding. He was expanding his country, the land in his country, because to try to get out of this economic depression, and he wanted to take over the world as well.
Hitler and the Nazi Party continued. Hitler resented the restrictions put on Germany by the Treaty of Versailles. While talking about peace, Hitler began to rearm Germany. He allied Germany with Mussolini and Italy. Then Hitler looked to restore Germany to power by expanding his empire. He first took over Austria in 1938. When the League of Nations did nothing to stop him, Hitler became bolder and took over Czechoslovakia in 1939.
All right, appeasement. So after World War I, the nations of Europe, they were weary. They didn't want another war. All right. So when countries such as Italy and Germany became aggressive and began to take over neighbors and build up their armies, countries such as Britain and France, like I said, they looked at it. They wanted to keep peace through appeasement. And this meant, hey, they tried to make Germany and Hitler happy rather than trying to stop him. Okay, let him take over these countries. Everything will be all right. All right. But he just kept coming and kept taking over stuff. So they hoped by meeting his demands, he'd be satisfied and there wouldn't be any war. Unfortunately, this policy did not work. It backfired. It made Hitler bolder. All right. It gave him time to build up his army during this time.
Appeasement. After World War I, the nations of Europe were weary and did not want another war. When countries such as Italy and Germany became aggressive and began to take over their neighbors and build up their armies, countries such as Britain and France hoped to keep peace through appeasement. This meant that they tried to make Germany and Hitler happy rather than try to stop him. They hoped that by meeting his demands, he would be satisfied and there wouldn't be any war. Unfortunately, the policy of appeasement backfired. It only made Hitler bolder. It also gave him time to build up his army.
All right, so the Great Depression was going on during this time. All right, from 1929 to 1939. It was a great time of great economic suffering. Okay, people were poor. People didn't have any money. We just talked about the Great Depression. So they didn't have any money. They didn't have enough stuff to eat. They didn't have places to live. So they were struggling. Many people were out of work. It created these unstable governments, and worldwide turmoil. And this is what also helped lead to World War II.
Great Depression. The period before World War II was a time of great economic suffering throughout the world, called the Great Depression. Many people were out of work and struggling to survive. This created unstable governments and worldwide turmoil that helped lead to World War II.
All right. Comprehension question. What was the name of the treaty signed between Germany and the Allied powers to end World War I? Was it A, the United Nations Charter, B, the Treaty of Versailles, or C, the Constitution? It is B, the Treaty of Versailles. And what it did, it placed these harsh reparations on Germany. All right. They had to pay lots of money back to France, where they'd ruined France's economy and Britain. All right. And it hurt their economy very much so in the process. So the Treaty of Versailles was one of them.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 2, what country invaded China to expand their empire? A, Japan, B, England, or C, Cuba? It is A, Japan. Japan was growing. It was growing rapidly. Well, it's just an island country, so they didn't have enough land. So what they do, they invaded China, trying to take China over.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 3, who became the dictator of Germany in 1934? A, Queen Elizabeth, B, Adolf Hitler, or C, Donald Trump? It was B, Adolf Hitler. He ruled from 1933 to 1945 when he ended his life, committed suicide at the end of World War II. But Adolf Hitler was one who took over Germany in 1934.
Ding, ding, ding.
He was chancellor, became the chancellor in 1933, and eventually just got in and became the Führer. So, number 4, what did Britain and France use to try to keep Hitler happy rather than punish him? A, appeasement, B, candy, or C, paper? It was A, appeasement. They said, hey, sorry. They said, hey, maybe we'll let him take over these lands here. We just let him do it. It'll make him happy. We don't want to go back to war. We just got out of World War One, you know. So they tried appeasement. Instead, it backfired on them, and it just made Hitler bolder, made him go and attack other countries and conquer other countries.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
All right, number 5. What was the period before World War II that caused great economic suffering around the world? Was A, the Stone Age, B, the Viking Age, or C, the Great Depression? We just talked about this. It is C, the Great Depression. The Great Depression was everybody was poor during the Great Depression. Nobody had any money. Nobody had jobs. All right, or very few did anyway. And it was these people were suffering. Okay, they didn't know if they were going to be able to put enough food on the table. All right, a lot of them lost their homes. I mean, there was a lot of different things, not only in America, but everywhere, all across the world.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
All right, class, that is it for today. I will see you next time right here as we talk about Adolf Hitler. All right, thank you. Have a good day.